They called him too short, too young, too ambitious. Born on a backwater island, mocked by French aristocrats, overlooked by generals twice his age, Napoleon Bonaparte had every reason to fail. And yet, within a decade, he conquered most of Europe. The secret wasn't that he had no weaknesses, it's that he turned every single one into a weapon. Today, you're gonna learn how he did it, and more importantly, how you can do the same. Because the world will test you. It will find your soft spots, your insecurities, your disadvantages, and most people crumble under that pressure. But there's another path, the path Napoleon walked, where weakness becomes strategy, where limitation becomes leverage, where what breaks others makes you unstoppable. Before we begin, lock this into your mind and drop it in the comments. My weakness is my blueprint for power. Rule 1. Study your weakness like a battlefield. Napoleon didn't pretend his weaknesses didn't exist. He mapped them with military precision. Born into minor Corsican nobility, he was an outsider in France. His accent was foreign. His family had no connections. His status was ambiguous, neither truly noble nor common. His rivals had centuries of bloodlines and fortunes behind them. They had estates. They had titles that meant something. They had the automatic respect that comes from generations of power. Napoleon had none of this. Most men would hide this. Napoleon did the opposite. He studied it. He asked himself brutal questions. What do people think when they see me? Where am I exposed? How can this disadvantage become my advantage? What assumptions are they making that I can use against them? He didn't waste time with self-pity. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. Instead, he turned self-examination into a weapon. The power of honest inventory. In life, your weakness is only fatal if you ignore it. The moment you refuse to look at it honestly, someone else will exploit it. Your insecurities, your lack of resources, your past failures, your limitations, these aren't secrets. People already see them. They're talking about them. They're calculating how to use them against you. The only question is, will you see them first? The powerful don't waste energy pretending. They dissect, they analyze, they turn self-awareness into strategy. They understand something that most people never grasp. Vulnerability acknowledged is vulnerability neutralized. When Napoleon entered the French military academy, he was mocked for his accent, for his poverty, for his origins. Other students came from families who had served French kings for generations. Napoleon came from an island that had only recently become French territory. He was, in many eyes, barely French at all. He could have spent his energy trying to fit in, trying to sound more Parisian, trying to hide his background. Instead, he leaned into it. He became fiercely Corsican. He studied military history with obsessive intensity, knowing that competence would matter more than birthright on a battlefield. He understood that his outsider status gave him something the aristocrats didn't have: hunger. Your weakness is information. Napoleon understood something profound. The generals who underestimated him were giving him information. Their mockery revealed their blind spots. Their arrogance became predictable. Every sneer, every dismissive comment, every assumption about what a Corsican nobody could or couldn't do, all of it was intelligence he could use. When people underestimate you because of your weakness, they're actually handing you an advantage. They're telling you exactly what they're not prepared for. They're showing you where they're complacent, where they're lazy, where they think they don't need to try. This is why studying your weakness isn't about self-flagellation. It's about gathering intelligence on how others perceive you and then deciding whether to correct that perception or exploit it. Sometimes the right move is to overcome your weakness, to train, to learn, to build the skill you lack. But sometimes, often, the right move is to make your weakness irrelevant, to find a battlefield where it doesn't matter, or better yet, to turn it into something that looks like strength. Napoleon's lack of aristocratic connections meant he had no stake in the old order. When the French Revolution came, men with ancient titles lost everything. Napoleon lost nothing. He was free to rise in a world where merit suddenly mattered more than bloodline. His weakness had become his ticket to power. The questions that change everything. Ask yourself right now, what is my greatest weakness? Not the one you tell people about in job interviews, not the humble brag weakness like I work too hard or I care too much. The real one, the one that keeps you up at night, the one you are afraid to name out loud because naming it makes it real. Is it your lack of education, your empty bank account, your age, your appearance, your past mistakes, the fact that you are starting later than everyone else, the fact that you come from nowhere and know no one? Write it down. Look at it. Don't flinch. Now ask the next question. Why is this actually a weakness? Not why it feels like one, why it actually limits you. Be specific, be ruthless. Strip away the emotion and look at the mechanics. Then ask, who benefits from me believing this is a weakness? What do they gain if I stay paralyzed by it? And finally, how would I attack someone with this weakness? If I were my own enemy, how would I exploit this? This last question is the key, because once you understand how your weakness could be used against you, you can prepare, you can defend, you can compensate, you can sometimes even make it a trap for others. The trap of unopened wounds. Most people never do this work. They carry their weaknesses like unopened wounds, trying to hide them, hoping no one notices. But wounds that aren't examined get infected. Weaknesses that aren't studied become prisons. Napoleon studied his lack of resources and became a master of doing more with less. He studied his outsider status and became a master of reading power dynamics. He studied his youth and inexperience and became a master of speed and aggression, finishing battles before older, more cautious generals could even begin. Every weakness he had, he turned it into a lens, a way of seeing the world that his enemies didn't have. The generals from old military families fought the way their fathers fought. Napoleon fought the way he had to, with innovation, with risk, with the understanding that he couldn't afford to lose. That desperation, that lack of safety net, made him sharper than men who had the luxury of playing it safe. Your weakness is an enemy that lives inside you. Napoleon once said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Your weakness is an enemy that lives inside you. It whispers, it sabotages, it tells you stories about what you can't do, who you can't become, what's impossible for someone like you. But enemies can be conquered. The first step is reconnaissance. You have to see it clearly, map its territory, understand its tactics, know when it attacks, how it attacks, what triggers it. The second step is strategy. You don't fight every battle. Sometimes you avoid the terrain where your weakness matters. Sometimes you're forced to fight on the ground where your strengths dominate. The third step is execution. You act despite the weakness, not pretending it doesn't exist, but understanding it so completely that it no longer controls you. The final question. So here is the choice you face, the same choice Napoleon faced. Will you study your weakness like a battlefield, or will you let it remain unknown territory where ambushes happen and defeats accumulate? Will you do the hard work of honest self-assessment, or will you keep pretending that ignorance is protection? Will you turn your greatest liability into your clearest vision, or will you let others use it against you while you look away? The answer will determine everything that comes next, because the powerful don't avoid their weaknesses. They study them, they understand them, they use them, and then they win. Rule 2. Turn limitation into ruthless focus. Napoleon's most famous weakness? Resources. When he took command of the French army in Italy in 1796, his soldiers were starving. They had no boots, no ammunition, no hope. They hadn't been paid in months. Some were deserting. Others were threatening mutiny. The equipment was outdated. The supply lines were non-existent. His aristocratic rivals commanded well-fed armies with unlimited supplies. They had the backing of empires. They had gold in their treasuries and food in their wagons. They had everything Napoleon didn't have. This should have destroyed him. Instead, it created the most dangerous version of Napoleon Bonaparte. The paradox of abundance. Here's what most people never understand. When you have everything, you get lazy. You waste resources. You fight battles that don't matter. You make decisions slowly because there's always tomorrow, always another chance, always more supply coming down the road. Abundance breeds complacency. It makes you soft. It makes you stupid. But when you have nothing, every move must be perfect. Every decision becomes life or death. There's no margin for error, no room for waste, no second chances. Scarcity doesn't weaken you. It sharpens you into a blade. Napoleon understood this at a cellular level. He looked at his ragged, hungry army and saw something his enemies didn't: potential energy waiting to be released. These men had nothing to lose. They were already at rock bottom. The only direction was up, and up meant victory, meant food, meant survival. Speed as a weapon. Napoleon turned scarcity into speed. While enemy armies moved slowly with their massive supply chains, wagons full of food, ammunition, medical supplies, all the comfort and security that wealth provides, he moved like lightning. His soldiers lived off the land. They foraged, they requisitioned, they took what they needed from conquered territory. This wasn't just about survival, it was strategy. It meant no supply lines to protect, no slow-moving baggage trains to guard, no waiting for resources to catch up. They struck before the enemy could prepare. Before enemy generals even knew Napoleon had moved, he was already in position, already attacking, already winning. He won battles not through resources, but through timing and precision, through being exactly where he needed to be at exactly the right moment, through hitting the enemy at their weakest point while they were still setting up camp and checking their supply manifests. The Austrian and Piedmontese generals couldn't understand it. How was this ragged French army everywhere at once? How were they moving so fast? Where were their supplies? They didn't understand that the lack of supplies was the point, that poverty was Napoleon's secret weapon. Your limitations are your education. In your life, limitation is your greatest teacher. It's the pressure that creates diamonds. It's the resistance that builds muscle. It's the constraint that forces innovation. When you don't have money, you learn creativity. You can't just buy the solution. You have to think. You have to improvise. You have to find angles that people with money never see because they never have to look for them. When you don't have connections, you learn to build value people can't ignore. You can't get in the door through who you know, so you have to become someone worth knowing. You have to create something so compelling that doors open themselves. When you don't have time, you learn to prioritize like your life depends on it, because maybe it does. You learn what actually matters. You learn to cut through the noise, the busy work, the comfortable delusions. You learn to see the difference between motion and progress. Most people see their limitations and quit. They see the gap between where they are and where they want to be, and they decide the gap is too wide. They look at what they don't have and use it as permission to fail. Powerful people see limitations and ask a different question. How does this force me to be better than everyone else? The advantage of having nothing. Let's be specific. Let's make this concrete. You don't have a big network? Good. That means you're not wasting time maintaining relationships that don't matter. You're not trapped in social obligations. You're not playing political games. Build something so valuable, people come to you. Create something they need. Make yourself indispensable through competence, not connection. You don't have experience? Perfect. You're not trapped by outdated methods. You don't have 20 years of this is how we've always done it weighing you down. You can see the obvious solutions that veterans miss because they're too invested in the old way. You can move fast while others are consulting their playbooks. You don't have resources? Excellent. You'll move faster than anyone weighed down by comfort. You'll take risks that well-funded competitors won't take because they have too much to lose. You'll innovate because you have to. You'll find efficiencies because waste isn't an option. You don't have a safety net? Then you'll learn to fly, or you'll learn what you're really made of. Either way, you'll become someone you weren't before. The question of excess. Napoleon built an empire with broken soldiers and empty pockets. He started with less than nothing and conquered most of Europe, not despite his limitations, because of them. Those limitations made him ruthless about what mattered. He couldn't afford to waste a single soldier, so he learned to use them perfectly. He couldn't afford to lose a single battle, so he studied until he knew more than generals who've been fighting for decades. He couldn't afford to be slow, so he became faster than anyone thought possible. His poverty made him dangerous. His scarcity made him unstoppable. So here's the question you need to answer. What's your excuse? What limitation are you using to justify staying small? What lack are you letting define you? What scarcity are you treating as a cage instead of a catalyst? Because the truth is, your limitation isn't the problem. Your relationship with your limitation is the problem. You can look at what you don't have and see a death sentence. Or you can look at what you don't have and see a forcing function, something that eliminates every option except excellence. Napoleon chose excellence. He had no choice. And that lack of choice made him into someone who could choose his own destiny. What will your limitations make you into? Rule 3. Make your weakness invisible through mastery elsewhere. Here's the truth they don't tell you. Napoleon wasn't actually short. He was 5'7", average height for his time. But British propaganda spread the lie, and it stuck. Political cartoonists drew him as a tiny man throwing tantrums. Enemy newspapers mocked Little Boney. The caricature became more famous than the reality. And here's what's fascinating. Napoleon knew. He knew what they were saying. He knew the rumors, the jokes, the cartoons being passed around London drawing rooms. He had intelligence networks that reported everything. So, how did Napoleon respond? He didn't waste energy defending himself. He didn't write letters explaining French measurement systems versus British ones. He didn't go on a campaign to correct the record. He didn't let his ego pull him into a battle he couldn't win. He simply became so dominant in every other way that it didn't matter. The power of strategic indifference. This is mastery. Not caring about the things that don't matter. Not fighting battles on terrain chosen by your enemies. Understanding that some weaknesses, real or imagined, can't be fixed through direct confrontation. Napoleon could have spent years trying to convince people he was actually average height. He would have looked desperate, defensive, small in all the ways that actually matter. Instead, he made himself large in every dimension that counted. He mastered artillery when others ignored it, while aristocratic officers saw artillery as ungentlemanly, as something for lower classes and technical specialists. Napoleon studied it obsessively. He understood trajectories, firing angles, the mathematics of destruction. He learned how to position cannons so they could break infantry formations in cavalry charges. He turned artillery from a supporting element to the centerpiece of his tactical doctrine. He changed how war was fought. He studied logistics while aristocrats studied etiquette. While other generals worried about titles and protocol and who sat where at dinner, Napoleon learned how to move 200,000 men across a continent, how to feed them, how to position supply depots, how to maintain momentum across impossible distances. The unsexy, grinding work that actually determines who wins wars. By the time anyone mentioned his height, they were already describing him as emperor, as the man who conquered most of Europe, as the general who never lost a battle for 15 years, as the ruler who reshaped the entire continent. The mathematics of perception. The strategy is simple, but executing it requires discipline. When you have a weakness you cannot change, build strength so overwhelming that the weakness becomes irrelevant. Not invisible, not erased, irrelevant. There's a crucial difference. Napoleon's critics still mentioned his height, but they mentioned it in the same breath as his conquests, his genius, his power. The weakness didn't disappear. It just became the least interesting thing about him. Think about the mathematics of attention. People have limited mental bandwidth. They can only focus on so many things about you at once. If you give them nothing but your weakness to discuss, that's all they'll see. You become defined by the one thing you lack. But if you give them achievement after achievement, victory after victory, result after result, eventually the weakness gets crowded out. There's simply too much else to talk about. You're not a great speaker? Then become the person who writes strategies that win empires. Become the one whose memos are quoted, whose written analysis changes how companies operate, whose emails are forwarded up the chain because the ideas inside are too valuable to ignore. Let your speaking be average. Your thinking will do the talking. You're not charismatic? Become so competent that people need you anyway. Be the one who actually knows how to fix the problem, who understands the technical details, who can build the thing, run the numbers, make it work. Charisma opens doors. Competence keeps them open and builds new ones. You're not connected? Become so valuable that connections chase you. Create something people want. Build skills people need. Solve problems people are desperate to solve. The well-connected will bring you into their networks because leaving you out would be stupid. The trap of defensive living. Most people do the opposite. They spend their entire lives defending their weakness, explaining it, justifying it, asking people to overlook it, making it the center of every conversation. I'm not good at public speaking, but I know I don't have much experience, but I'm sorry I don't have the right background, but every conversation begins with the weakness. Every introduction leads with the apology. They make themselves small before anyone else gets the chance. This is defensive living, and it's exhausting. More importantly, it's ineffective. Because the more you talk about your weakness, the more other people think about it too. You're literally doing their job for them. Napoleon understood something crucial. People only focus on your weakness when they have nothing else to talk about. But if you give them power, victory, and results to discuss instead, the weakness fades into background noise. It becomes trivia, a quirk, an interesting footnote to a much larger story. The British could draw all the cartoons they wanted. Napoleon was too busy conquering their allies, disrupting their trade, and threatening their island fortress. What mattered more, the height of the man or the size of his empire? The doctrine of overwhelming force. Here's what this looks like in practice. Don't fight perception. Overwhelm it. Don't argue with critics. Outwork them. Don't defend your weakness. Build something so undeniable that critics run out of words. When Napoleon's enemies called him short, he took Vienna. When they called him a Corsican upstart, he crowned himself emperor. When they called him a tyrant, he reformed French law in ways that still influence Europe today. Every insult was answered not with words, but with achievement. This requires a fundamental shift in how you allocate your energy. Most people split their energy, half trying to fix their weakness, half trying to hide it, with only a fraction left over for building strength. Napoleon did the opposite. He spent zero energy on the unfixable weakness, zero energy on defending his reputation from cartoon attacks. All his energy went into mastery, into becoming so good at what mattered that nothing else mattered. This is not about ignoring real problems. If your weakness is lack of skill, build a skill. If it's lack of knowledge, gain the knowledge. But if it's something you cannot change, your background, your appearance, your age, where you came from, who your family is, then trying to fix it is wasted energy. Redirect that energy into mastery, into building strength so formidable that when people list your attributes, they start with your achievements and run out of time before they get to your weaknesses. The final declaration. Listen carefully, because this is the truth that separates the powerful from the pretenders. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one with no weaknesses. That person doesn't exist. They're a myth. They're a fantasy, sold to you by people who want you to feel inadequate. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who knows exactly what their weaknesses are and has already turned them into traps for anyone stupid enough to attack them. They've done the work. They've looked in the mirror, they've mapped the terrain of their own limitations and turned that map into a battle plan. They know where they're vulnerable, so they built walls there. They know where they're strong, so they built empires there. They know their story, so they control how it's told. That person can be you. That person should be you. Your weakness is waiting. It's sitting there right now. This thing you've been avoiding, this limitation you've been making excuses for, this disadvantage you've been hoping will just disappear if you ignore it long enough. It's not going anywhere. But you can transform what it means. You can transform what it does. You can transform it from anchor to engine. The game is on. The world is watching. Your enemies are circling. Your move. Now go build something they'll never forget. The final challenge. Now here's the thing about this knowledge. It's worthless if it stays hidden. Napoleon didn't conquer Europe by keeping his strategies secret from his own army. He shared them. He trained his generals. He built a machine where everyone understood the game. And right now, YouTube's algorithm is deciding whether this video gets shown to 10 people or 10 million. That decision is partially in your hands. If this resonated with you, if you see yourself applying even one of these 6 rules, then do 3 things. First, hit that like button. Not for me, for the algorithm. Because every like tells YouTube this is valuable. Show this to more people who think like me. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because we're building something here. A community of people who refuse to let their weaknesses define them. People who understand that power isn't about perfection. It's about strategy. You don't want to miss what comes next. Third, and this is the most important one, drop a comment right now. Tell me, what's the one weakness you're going to weaponize? What's the disadvantage you're going to turn into your origin story? Write it down. Make it real. Let it be the first declaration of your new strategy. And here's why this matters. Every comment, every like, every share sends a signal. It tells YouTube to show this to someone else who's tired of their weaknesses holding them back. Someone who's ready to stop making excuses and start building power. Someone exactly like you were before you watched this. You got value from this. Someone else needs it too. Don't let the algorithm bury it. Napoleon understood that victory is never achieved alone. He built an empire with soldiers who believed in the same principles. This is your chance to build that army. Like, subscribe, comment, share this with one person who needs to hear it. Because the most dangerous person in any room isn't just the one who knows their weaknesses. It's the one who helps others see theirs. Your move. Let's build this together.